staff to see everyone in the public.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mrs. Walker, would you lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sunshine Law statement: all requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been met for this meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Oradell. Notice of this meeting was filed to the record in Town News, and all persons requesting such notice. Mr. Darian, would you read the mission statement?
Yes, the Oradell Public School District is dedicated to the ongoing pursuit of educational excellence through comprehensive, innovative curriculum and instruction. The district is committed to providing opportunities for social, emotional, and academic discovery to foster curiosity, courage, and character. Our goal is to prepare our students to become lifelong learners who are self-directed, resilient, productive, responsible citizens.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Castro?
Board members at home? Okay.
Here.
You have to unmute yourself when you speak and then mute yourself again.
Mr. Griffin?
Here.
Mrs. Levy?
Here.
Mrs. Norian?
Here.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Darian?
Here.
Mrs. Nichols?
Here. We're open to the public for agenda items only. Just raise your digital hand and we will unmute you and give you the floor. So, Rami, would you unmute Estelle Haberman? Is she unmuted?
She can unmute herself.
Estelle, you have the floor, but you have to unmute yourself from your end.
I just want to observe.
Okay, thank you. If you could just mute your microphone. Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Is that 92? I'm sorry, I can't see.
Yes.
93.
93.
93, thank you.
Okay, moving on. I had asked Barbara to put two things into our packets this week. One is the survey results, the reopening survey results. And the other was she had some suggestions on district goals, which she placed in our folders that came home on the weekend. So I'm not sure if people want to, I mean, the reopening results, I think maybe we want to take a week or two to look at because there's a lot of information in there, but if somebody wants to go through them tonight, we can. And if anybody wants to look at the district goals tonight and discuss them now, we can do that. Does anyone have any opinions on either? And for you board members at home, if you want to speak, just raise your hand so I can see you. Mrs. Walker?
First of all, the results of the survey, I would really like to have a week or so to go over this. It looks like it's a very comprehensive study, and I really would need a great deal of time to digest everything and give it its just due.
Mrs. Levy?
Thank you to everybody who participated in this survey because I was really impressed with the percentage that we got back. I believe it's probably one of the highest that we've ever gotten back. And thank you, Barbara, for working, or Ms. Longo, sorry, for working on the goals. I was trying to find out, and being that we didn't have NJSLA last year, is there any way we could get, like, how much we're looking to increase in the, like we want how many people, I guess we're saying we just want to increase the numbers of people, of students that are moving to these. We're not going to say a certain percentage or anything like that. And does the link it doesn't exactly, the way they score the link it's not a direct correlation to the,
Link it to link it.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Do you think we're going to have standardized tests this year?
They say we are. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know what that means, but so far they're saying, yes, we are.
I mean, does the board want to take like the next 2 weeks to go over these? If you have any others, bring them to the next meeting and we can discuss then? Or
Yeah,
does,
I agree. I need a little more time to process these. The survey is rich. It's full with information. Yeah, and we just got it before.
so we're going to bring these back to our, I'll bring these back to my president's report in 2 weeks. Everyone's good with that?
Yes.
Okay, so in the meantime, as far as goals go, start thinking of some. If you have some, email them to Barbara. I believe, Barbara, you sat with your admin team and kind of came up with these, right? You thought maybe this would be a good direction to head. So this is just something Barbara was trying to help us out with. So I guess let's take a look at them over the next 2 weeks and we'll go from there. Okay, moving on to superintendent's report. All right, moving to the business administrator's report.
Nothing tonight.
Okay, moving to minutes, review of minutes, October 14th. Any questions or comments, please email Mr. Marmara. We have the approval of the September 23rd minutes. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of September 23rd.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Walker. Any questions? Call the question?
Mr. Castro?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Abstain.
Mrs. Levy?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes, committee reports, administrative items. Mr. Darian, would you take these?
Yes, I would like to introduce administrative items, A1 for District Student Code of Conduct and A2 for Parent Student Handbook.
I second the motion.
Any questions or comments? Mrs. Levy?
I just want to, I guess, say, here, it's my understanding and looking at it, it is just the changes are the ones that relate to the COVID and the hybrid classes and those specifics. I couldn't find anything else.
This has been in, the code of conduct has been a part of the school handbook since the beginning of the school year.
Okay.
Getting approved.
Okay, I just was trying to check from the previous one and make sure that those were the changes. Thank you.
Any other questions? Call the question?
Mr. Castro?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Levy?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes, buildings and grounds, Mr. Darian?
Yes, an update on the committee. We have not had a meeting since our last update, but we did have almost a complete rollout of the ionization system throughout the building. So if Mr. Mamara can tell us if we're 100% today or we're almost 99%.
I would, about 90 to 95% right now. So the major work to the rooftop units has been completed. So our contractor has completed their on-site work. And then it's just a couple of the classroom univent systems that are being handled by our own staff for the installation that's needed to be taken care of. So very close to completion.
Okay, thank you. Other than that, I have, would like to introduce items B1.
I second it.
Any questions? Call the question?
Mr. Castro?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mrs. Levy,
Yes.
Mrs. Noyan,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, curriculum, Mrs. Norian?
Yes, we have yet to be able to meet, but understand that curriculum is following the course of COVID. We're making adjustments wherever we need to make adjustments to get by at this point, and we'll be looking at things in the future.
Thank you. Finance, Mrs. Shapiro?
I love that dog. Riley. For finance, I have no report. This evening, I'd like to make a motion to approve items D1 through D8.
I second it.
Any questions? Call the question?
Mr. Castro,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mrs. Levy,
Yes.
Mrs. Norian,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, delegate report, Mr. Walsh?
I have the delegates assembly coming up. At the last meeting, I told you the resolution from Lodi. It's in the end of November. So I will be meeting at the end of November.
Okay, virtually, I'm assuming, right? You don't need mileage, I'm assuming virtually, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Personnel, Mrs. Walker?
Yes, thank you. We did not have a meeting prior to this meeting tonight. I believe we'll be going into closed session to discuss personnel. And with that, I'd like to present G1.
I second.
You mean F1?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, F1.
Mr. Walsh, you gonna second F1?
Yes.
Any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. In fact, I have a couple of questions on the report itself. I don't know if these questions are questions I would answer here or get answered in closed session since it relates to personnel.
What type of question is it?
Specific to information in the personnel report, specific to individual employees, it sounds like. So I think it's probably best served in executive, session.
Do you need information before you vote?
Many of these questions I had emailed earlier today, and I have not received answers to them yet. So those are the ones that I would like to have answers on. I would like it before I vote.
The email that you sent me or someone else?
I sent it to you.
I'm not sure that's gonna, I'm not sure that will have any effect on what we're voting on.
So in the personnel report, Roman number 3, number 1, there's comments about long-term leave for an employee number. And I think that some of my questions do relate to that.
Under 3, which one?
Transfer reassignments 3.1, and then there's a section that says to position, and there is a statement under that says long-term leave for, and it has an employee number.
So our employee numbers have been crossed out, so I don't know if you have the final agenda.
I do in my email, and I'm happy to look at that. I'm looking at the tentative one that was mailed to me, but I'm happy to see if the other one has something different.
I'm not sure your questions will have any effect on the vote for this. This is just something, if we're replacing, if the admin feels they need to move people around or replace teachers for certain things. I'm not sure those questions will. Barbara, you want?
Yeah, I don't want to make sure there's questions on.
Hold on.
I think it's often saying 3 and then the chart. I don't want to keep for them, I think that's coming down.
I'm going to show Barbara the 3 questions that you sent me. These are the 3 from this morning, right? Jeremy?
Yes, that's correct. The email that I sent this morning.
Okay, so those 3 questions really have nothing to do with this agenda, but I'll show them to Barbara.
So, and in terms of the 3 questions, there is a list of questions underneath related to timeline, process, and procedures that all seem to relate to this. That I just
Jen,
want
your questions have to do with a leave, which we have nothing to do with on this agenda tonight. We're not approving a leave, disapproving a leave. The admin is just moving positions in the building, which is their prerogative to do. Your questions have to do with a leave. This item has nothing to do really with a person's leave.
Yeah, there are no leaves this evening.
There's no leaves being approved on this agenda.
I think,
I'm looking at the changes to the personnel report. I see the changes that are made compared to what I have in front of me. I understand where you're coming from. Okay.
So the rest of those can go into closed session, but I'm just saying for this agenda item, it has nothing to do with the movement.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you okay with that?
I think I'm okay with that. That's fine.
Okay, any other questions? Mrs. Walker?
I think, Jeremy, maybe, do you see where it says on number 1 under Roman numeral 3, per diem leave? Is that what you're referring to?
On the previously unedited version, there were some references to specific things that aren't on the final version. And those made me think that it related to my questions. I think ultimately, if we have questions on this, we're going to have an opportunity later to go into closed session. I do agree that this information doesn't affect my ability to vote on this.
Any other questions? Call the question.
There is a question from another board member. I'm sorry.
Jay, sorry.
Just to clarify, because I think I might have a similar, I think I had a similar thought that I get the feeling I understand where Jeremy's coming from. So I just want to clarify, what is it that exactly we are voting on for this particular section, Roman numeral 3, that we're just saying that we have the ability to move these particular roles to the roles?
Yeah, DJ, this is just movement of these people from the first column to the second column. That's it. This is all we're doing on this.
Okay, that's what I just want to make
So
sure
the
that.
first line, this person is going from a per diem leave to a long-term leave.
Okay.
I mean, in some senses, there's still like some questions about the reasoning for the move that feel germane, but that they were definitely not emailed before.
Any other questions? Call the question.
Mr. Cascio,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mrs. Levy,
Yes.
Mrs. Norman,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, policy, Mrs. Levy.
Yes, thank you. We met right prior before the last meeting, as we mentioned, and were unable to get our new policies in for first reading before the packets went out. So I'm offering the following policies on gifted and talented and remote learning for first reading. And that is it.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Mr. Darian?
Yeah, my question is regarding policy for remote learning. Is there a way that you can send me the original version that we got from school boards, or a red line version of any changes so far?
Of what?
Do you have the original, did you make changes to the one we got from school boards? Or is this how it came? The one that's in our packet, for first reading. Did we get a different version from school boards that we made changes to?
That's the one from school boards.
Did we make any changes to it?
No, the remote learning one, no.
We need a slight change to the.
Gifted and talented one.
Where we
Mhm.
put the superintendent rather than the principal.
No.
My mic's not on.
I thought that was in remote learning. I thought if you wanted to switch, you had to write the letter to the superintendent. I thought was my suggestion.
Oh,
So maybe that was.
that was it.
Mhm.
I apologize.
it.
You're very right. So we made the change that if you want to switch between the hybrid and the remote learning or vice versa, that it had to go to the superintendent rather than the principal.
Okay, so that was the only change?
That was the only change.
Okay,
And the only other thing we had to fill in were blanks about number of days, notice and whatever, but that's in our reopening plan, I believe. So we had to stick with what we already had.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Mhm.
Everything else is the same.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I believe actually, if you look at, sorry, to the speaker, if you look at the minutes of our policy meeting, it
yes,
was also indicated on the bottom that that was the change that we were making.
oh, I didn't see that, but okay.
Any other questions? Public relations, Mr. Griffin?
We have not had a recent meeting. I do just want to commend the staff on their incredible communication out to the district in these trying, changing times. I feel like our staff has done an awesome job of getting information out where parents probably have lots of questions, and I really appreciate that. So big kudos to them.
We're going to open to the public at this time. If you would like to speak, raise your digital hand and we will unmute you. I see there's a James D. Guglielmo. You've had your hand up the whole time. Oh, went away. Okay. Okay, so can you please unmute Melissa Peach?
Yes. Yes, here I am.
Is that you, James?
Yes, this is me. Yes.
You have the floor.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to ask about, I'd be very interested to even get a preliminary understanding of some of the responses to the survey that went out. I understand a more fulsome analysis will require some time, but I'm kind of anxious to hear what some of the responses were.
So tomorrow it's going to be posted on our website, the whole thing. You can see the whole thing.
Okay, great.
Rami, could you unmute Melissa Pisa? Is she unmuted? Melissa, you should be unmuted.
Yes, I'm just,
Okay, we can hear you.
hi. So I prepared a statement and I'm just going to read it. I find it easier, especially remotely, to read rather than speak. So I spoke at the board meeting in August to report the OEA's concerns with the district's reopening plan. Since that time, we have many grave concerns that need to be shared with the board, especially now that we have had 3 confirmed cases within the building. For this reason, the OEA decided to poll the association regarding their experiences since the reopening of OPS. The survey revealed that over 90% of the staff are stressed, anxious, and overwhelmed. While I'm not here to read a laundry list of complaints, some of the top concerns that repeatedly came up were the bathroom on the first floor that continues to be unventilated, creating an unsafe environment, checklists that in the district's plan were to be placed in the classrooms for custodians to sign off on, despite our request for them, still have not been properly completed. Lunchrooms for staff are not being cleaned and do not have enough room for staff to socially distance. When sprayed, the proper dwell time is not being practiced, leaving student chairs and desks, etc., wet. Once teachers or students dry them, it negates the sanitizing effect. Garbage bags in the classroom waste baskets are reused for the entire week rather than being changed daily. And it has become very difficult for social distancing to be practiced in hallways, bathrooms, and stairwells. Since the survey, levels of anxiety have continued to reach new heights. Multiple teachers have approached me to express fear of using sick days. Despite applying for medical leave weeks before it was to commence, the district failed to ever address this leave with the teacher. When this well-respected and revered teacher informed their class that they would be taking a leave, the appalling response to the parents of this class was deeply concerning and as well as misinformed. To the best of my knowledge, there is no protocol regarding informing a class of an imminent leave. There have been attestations that have been completed with concerns that were not followed up upon. There have been 3 confirmed cases of COVID, but a professional cleaning team has not been brought into the building, as has been done in many New Jersey schools. With these confirmed cases, I personally am heartbroken that any child, colleague, or member of this community would have to go through this. It's both physically and emotionally draining experience, and we're now learning can have lifelong implications to those affected. We currently have 2 beloved staff members, one with underlying conditions, who have contracted this virus. With safety measures falling slack, no one feels safe within the building. At this time, we are in fear for every member of the OPS community. Of the utmost importance is cleaning rooms when anyone is sent home or calls in sick with suspected COVID symptoms. According to CDC guidelines, areas where a sick individual have been must be sectioned off for 24 hours, then cleaned and reopened for use. This is also in the criteria list for every category on the New Jersey Department of Health COVID-19 regional risk matrix. Despite its critical importance, it is not being done. The OEA is acutely aware that these are challenging times for everyone. We feel strongly that the building should remain closed if we cannot follow the cleaning and safety protocols in our reopening plan. Any discussion of phase 2 should be set aside until we are able to operate and meet the guidelines set forth by our reopening plan. The New Jersey Department of Health and the CDC, let alone beginning to discuss phase 2, especially as cases of COVID are on the rise throughout the state and the county. Thank you.
Melissa, I have a question for you. Have you discussed all those items with the principal or the superintendent? Have you sat down with them?
We went through professional and we also had meetings earlier in the school year.
I'm saying, have you gone through every single one of those things? I heard you mention lunchrooms, cleaning rooms. Have you gone through all of that with them? Have you sat down with them?
Everything was addressed. Everything was brought to their attention, I should say.
Turn your mic on.
To
Barbara.
whose attention?
To whose attention?
We went through professional committee. It goes through the chain. And early in September, we addressed these with building administration, yourself, Ms. Bozius. Later, as things continued, we went through the professional committee.
Look, some of the things on the list were addressed a long time ago. I mean, I don't know if we're going to go through the whole list right now, but
absolutely not.
Yeah, but a lot of those things have already been addressed.
Have you heard these before?
No one has come to me, no.
So I think, Melissa, maybe go back, see exactly what your professional committee mentioned, and I guess go through that route and go through the principal, through the superintendent, and then you'll report to us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So we'll be on it, but we'll wait to hear from you, Mrs. Longo.
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, not seeing any. We'll move to old and new business. Any old or new business? Mr. Griffin?
Yeah, so I just wanted to reiterate getting something on the books with Matt Lee about goal setting. I know we've talked about that a couple times. I'd love to see that done, and I'd love to see it. I know I had a conversation with him. He may not be able to come in person. He can do it virtually. I think we should allow for that. So that's one of the old businesses. The other thing I wanted to just say is maybe a new business, old business. Looking at schedule adjustments at some point for our virtual kids is something we should consider.
Any other old or new business?
I have one more. I'm sorry. So one of the things that I don't think is happening right now, but considering there are cases in the building that we know of, and it's unfortunate that that is happening, I would say attestation forms for virtual kids. We should take a hard look at that and see if that's something that is happening or should happen to help us as a school maintain what's happening with these classes, especially the ones that we know there is potential exposure.
Thank you. Mrs. Walker?
Do we have an update on the health of the three folks, the two teachers and the child, as far as?
Just like a general update.
General.
Your mic, Jeff.
One of the teachers. Okay, one is still working and the other one is on sick leave.
So one is still working remotely and one is on sick leave.
Okay, good. Thank you. And wish them well. Speedy recovery, certainly, from the board.
Mrs. Levy?
How we heard about the third one, I think that, believe that to be
There's an update on the third one.
I don't have an update.
okay. Are we in touch with that family just to make sure?
The
The nurse has been.
The school nurses.
If I could bring up, have, in terms of, I first want to say that I commend the administration, including you, Mrs. Longo, in terms of the notification process. I was really thought in terms of getting notified on Friday and texting the parents, so that way, because not everybody is checking their email. I commend you on that, because I think knowing that there was events on Saturday morning and not everybody's checking their email after 5 o'clock on Friday, I thank you for that as a member of this community and a member of this board. So I do appreciate that. In terms of like the deep cleaning of the building, I know it was brought up, and I know some other places have done like professional deep cleaning. I was just curious what the process was that we were going through in terms of cleaning the building. Well, if you want to.
So we haven't hired a professional cleaning service to come in to do a cleaning. The custodians are in. They did do a cleaning and disinfecting of all the classrooms and all the common areas in the building, and that's.
Yeah. And we purchased the equipment so
Yeah.
we could do the deep cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
We did purchase the equipment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other old or new business? Okay, we need to go into closed session. The topics will be superintendent search, personnel, and safety. Does someone want to make a motion?
So moved.
I second it.
Okay, we will not be taking action after the meeting.